First Take is brought to you by Mobile One Extended Performance Synthetic Motor Oil and Snickers. Snickers satisfies.
The Seahawks are back to playoff form, crushing the Vikings 38-7. 3 straight wins now for Seattle and 5 wins in their last 6 games. Russell Wilson, listen to this, had 10 TDs in his first 9 games and 11 in his last 3. Thomas Rawls really stepping in nicely for Marshawn Lynch, his 3rd game this season with 100 rush yards and a rush TD. Stephen A. says your Super Bowl pick, are the Seahawks now the team to beat in the NFC?
Well, I'm not going to go as far as saying they're the team to beat, because there's a team by the name of the Carolina Panthers who look absolutely sensational from the perspective that whatever needs to be done gets done, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball with key stops or whether it's Cam Newton electrifying us all and showing off that he's the legit MVP candidate that he is. And, of course, there is the Arizona Cardinals with Bruce Arians coaching his butt off and Carson Palmer and that offense looking formidable. So we can't ignore that. But I will say this, 2 things. Nobody wants to face Seattle if they don't have to. That's number 1. And number 2, and more importantly, Seattle can beat anybody if their defense shows up the way that they showed up yesterday afternoon. Now, we have to recognize something here. Yeah, Adrian Peterson rushed for just 18 yards on 8 carries. And by the way, it ain't cool, bro, to call out your coach like he did. That's not the way to go, to be quite honest with you. But I will say this. What do you expect going against that speed with those athletes on that defensive side of the ball? And you've got a quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater who Skip always says, I like him, but I don't love him. You know, then when you take into account Anthony Barr goes down with a groin injury, Harrison Smith has a hamstring injury, nose tackle Linval Joseph had a foot injury. You look at all of those injuries that Minnesota was suffering from. They really didn't have a chance yesterday. Seattle comes in there. There's a level of urgency attached to everything that they do. Their defense took pride in the fact that they've been giving up too many points, and they got called out by yours truly along with several others who have been watching them, and they responded like we expect the Legion of Boom to respond. And that's what they did. And so because of it, they're now in prime position to make noise moving forward. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they won their remaining 4 games on the year. We'll see what happened. And if they don't, and they've got that wild card spot, you know, at the very least, available to them, and they can really make some noise. Russell Wilson is looking sensational. 3 touchdown passes, ran for a touchdown yesterday. His elusivity is just kicking in because they get pressure on this kid, and they can't catch him. And so when you do that and you have that ability to extend plays, and you've got this kid Rawls who has you barely thinking about beast mode, Marshawn Lynch at all, even though he fumbled yesterday, ran for 101 yards, is formidable on the ground, can run the football, and there's seemingly no drop-off from beast mode to him. And you look at these guys, they seem to be better without Jimmy Graham. I mean, this kid Wilson at the tight end spot is somebody that they were familiar with playing with at that tight end spot for years. He knows the system. He knows what it takes. This camaraderie and chemistry with Russell Wilson, all those things considered, I think Seattle can make a lot of noise. And they are not tippy-toeing. They are stomping in your direction. And I think the best thing you can say about them is that you cannot ignore them. Here they come. You had better be ready, or the reigning defending 2-time NFC champions will knock you off.
So are you saying they're getting closer to Carolina and to Arizona,
Yes.
or do you think they passed Arizona?
No, I said they're getting closer. They're creeping up on them significantly, rapidly. I would not say that they're over them as of yet, because remember, they're up and down, whereas Carolina and Arizona have displayed the level of consistency throughout this year.
I need to see a whole lot more from Seattle.
Defensive.
I take it both ways. Although Russell Wilson, it's almost like he's grown up. He's taken it up a notch to your stat. That's the stat of the day, is that he has 11 in his last 3 games, 11 touchdowns.
After having 10.
And a lot to Doug Baldwin. He stepped it up.
And all of a sudden, Russell Wilson is making plays from the pocket I did not think he was capable of making at about 5 feet, whatever he is. He's just short of 5'11", and he's shorter than Johnny Manziel by almost an inch. And he is standing in the pocket making big-time down-the-field throws. He leads the league in 15-plus yard completions. So that's pretty great. So I give that to them. They've almost become, dare I say, more of an offensive than a defensive team. And look, I'm not going to put much stock in what happened at Minnesota because I said the last time Green Bay went up there, what was it, 2 weeks ago? They're just not ready for prime time. They're not ready for this kind of game, and they were beat up. I give you that. But this was like an hors d'oeuvre for Seattle, because if you take Adrian Peterson out of the game, which they are highly capable of doing, and you force the game back into young Teddy's hands, look out, because he threw for 118 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. Then they got no shot. So it was the perfect matchup for Seattle yesterday, even at Minnesota, given all the injuries. But I remind you, just seemed like a couple of weeks ago, Carson Palmer went up to Seattle and beat him 39-32. And I remind you, in their sort of fits and starts year so far, where they've been way up and way down, they've blown, what is it? I've lost track. 5 fourth-quarter leads, the Legion of Boom has. So I'm just not sold yet. And I'm going to remind you also of this. If that ref hadn't given that win to Detroit on Monday Night Football, remember?
Given to them over Detroit.
Yeah, remember that?
Yep.
Okay. Detroit should have won that football game. And Seattle did win it 13-10 by hook or crook. And if you take that away, boy, they're in trouble. But they're on a roll. They did fall to 2-4, and everybody was starting to write them off. Now they've won 5 out of 6. So they are coming. But do I think they're... Right now, I still think Arizona is a little better to me than Carolina is. Well, just because of the firepower. And did you check out this kid, David Johnson, their third-round draft choice?
Nice.
Like, all of a sudden, they lose a couple running backs, and you think, uh-oh. And now Bruce Arians is comparing him to Edgerrin James, because he went for 99, and they were really impressed. I know Nick Foles had just gone in the tank in St. Louis, but that's been a nemesis for Arizona. Remember, the St. Louis had already beaten them.
Again, you dismiss your own comment by bringing up Nick Foles, because Nick Foles has been a disaster for St. Louis.
But remember,
really
they had won at Arizona, so, you know,
yes,
like, okay.
He's been a disaster for them. And then if you're Seattle, you got Baltimore.
Winnable,
I mean, they're prideful, but you're at Baltimore. You got St. Louis. You got Cleveland before St. Louis. And so when you look at those 3 games, we're really not going to know until Sunday, January 3rd, when they're at Arizona. Now, what I would say to you is this. I trust the character of the Seattle Seahawks, meaning their pride on the defensive side of the ball. I saw a little Richard Sherman in Richard Sherman yesterday in terms of the attitude. That's what I'm looking for.
I saw Richard against Antonio Brown in
Pittsburgh. That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying I need to see more of that from him. And it's sort of like they're getting it together. They're getting that mystique, that aura back. And if they have that, particularly when they go to Arizona, everything changes. Everything changes.
Seattle getting hot at the right time. We shall see. Meanwhile, the college football playoff is set. Did they get the seedings right, though? Skip has an interesting take. You don't want to miss that after the break.
I don't know what he's doing. The first thing in his path. This is such a bad look. It's such bad PR for us. Astonishing. Get even. They will make big noise this year.